It started with a look. One of those looks you're not supposed to notice because noticing means admitting something's there. But I noticed. I noticed how Caleb stared at me like I was the last drink in a desert. It was the kind of stare you catch just before someone realizes they've been caught. Asterisk, it happened at the bar. Jackson had already gone home, claiming an early meeting. Caleb and I stayed, like we always did. A few drinks in, his eyes softened. He stopped laughing as loudly. I thought maybe he was tired. Maybe I was imagining it. But then came the silence between his words, a flicker in his voice when he asked, "You ever feel like you're pretending with people?" Asterisk, I laughed nervously. That's kind of a dark question for tequila night. Asterisk, he didn't smile. Just looked at me, like he was trying to memorize my face. Asterisk, I'd known Caleb since high school. We were inseparable back when being just friends was enough to explain everything. But it never really was it? Even when I met Jackson, Caleb remained my constant, my shadow, my emergency contact. The first one I texted when I was angry, confused, or just bored. Asterisk so. When Jackson and I fought that night, one of those stupid spiraling fights about communication or lack of spark, I didn't think twice. I called Caleb. Asterisk, his apartment felt the same as always, familiar, safe. The air smelled of him cedar and something faintly citrusy. He tossed me a blanket and said I could crash on the couch. I lay down, but sleep didn't come. Maybe it was the fight. Maybe it was how Caleb kept glancing at me from the hallway. Asterisk, he walked over, sat beside the couch, and handed me a glass of water. His voice was low. "What if I said I'd give you $2,000, just for tonight?" Asterisk, I blinked. "What?" Asterisk, 2,000. One night. Asterisk, I sat up slowly. My chest went tight. "Is this a joke?" Asterisk, I'm serious, he said. "You don't have to say anything. I've wanted you for so long, Eli. I know you're with Jackson, and I know this is insane. But I'm not asking for a relationship. Just one night. One memory. I'll never bring it up again." Asterisk, the room spun a little not from the drinks, but from the weight of the words. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Asterisk, why would you pay me? I asked. Asterisk, because I don't want you to feel guilty. If it's a transaction, it's cleaner. Easier to forget, asterisk. I stood up. You think that makes it better? Asterisk, he shrugged, hurt flickering across his face. You came to me, Eli. When things got hard with him, you always come to me. Asterisk, I turned away. That doesn't mean this. Asterisk doesn't. It, he said, voice almost a whisper. I'm not trying to hurt you, or him. Damn it, I love you, and this is the only way I get to be close to you, even once. Asterisk, I should have left. Should have walked out right then and reminded myself who I was. But the truth, I didn't know anymore. Jackson and I had been slipping for months. He was good, kind, steady. But I hadn't felt seen in so long, with Caleb. It wasn't safe, but it was real. Asterisk, I didn't say yes, not out loud. But I didn't say no either. Asterisk, the rest happened in silence. He didn't touch me at first. He asked if I was sure 3 times. Each time, I nodded, heart cracking with something I couldn't name. Asterisk candles flickered in the corner of the room. His fingers trembled when they brushed mine. It wasn't about lust, it was something deeper, something terrifying. Asterisk. There were no moans, no fireworks, just tension, breaths. A tear I didn't realize slid down my cheek as he whispered my name. And when it was over, he held me like I might vanish. Asterisk, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to Caleb's breathing slow beside me. The room felt heavier than it had before, like something sacred had been broken, not violently, but with quiet, careful hands. Asterisk, what do you call it when you betray someone you love? With someone you also love? Asterisk lying there. $2,000 sitting folded on the nightstand? I realized the real cost had nothing to do with money. Asterisk morning light spilled through Caleb's curtains like it didn't know what we had done. He stood in the kitchen, humming softly as he made coffee. like we hadn't just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Asterisk, he didn't mention the money. Didn't mention the night, just handed me a mug and smiled. Asterisk, you okay? He asked. Asterisk, I lied. Yeah, fine. But I wasn't. I went home that afternoon and found Jackson reading on the couch, legs tucked under a blanket I'd bought him for Christmas. He looked up, smiled, and reached for me. I kissed his forehead and sat beside him. He rested his head on my shoulder, and I flinched. He didn't notice. Asterisk that night. I dreamt of Caleb's hand brushing against my, not sexual, just present, attentive, real. I woke up sweating, confused, and angry at myself. I told myself it was just the guilt. That was all. But it wasn't. The texts from Caleb started 2 days later. Nothing inappropriate, just warm asterisk. Don't let guilt bury what felt real. Asterisk, hope you smiled today. Asterisk, you're still my best friend Eli? That hasn't changed. But everything had changed. I didn't reply at first. I buried my phone under my pillow and tried to pour myself back into Jackson. I made breakfast for him, laughed at his dry jokes, held his hand, tighter kissed him longer. But everything felt like performance art scripted affection from a movie. I wasn't really in anymore. Jackson noticed eventually. You're quiet lately, he said one night. Is it work? Asterisk, I nodded. Yeah, work. Asterisk, he didn't push. He never did. He trusted me. That was the worst part. A week passed before I saw Caleb again. He bumped into me outside the grocery store on purpose. I was sure of it. He offered to walk with me, just a few blocks. I let him. Asterisk, we didn't talk about that night. Not at first. We joked about the weird neighbors and the old songs we used to blast in his car. I laughed, genuinely. For the first time in days, I felt like me again. Asterisk, I missed you, he said softly as we reached my street. Not that version of you in my bed, just you, the one who used to tell me every stupid thing. Asterisk, I swallowed hard. I missed you too. Asterisk. He looked at me, then really looked. Before I could stop it, he leaned in and kissed me. Soft, careful, nothing wild. Just a moment of honesty I hadn't earned. I pulled away, I can't. I whispered, asterisk. He nodded. I know. I had to know. I didn't tell Jackson. I tried to pretend it hadn't happened. Tried to rewrite reality in my head, but my body knew the truth. Every time Jackson touched me, something in me stiffened on. Because I didn't care about him. Because part of me had already drifted somewhere else. Asterisk, I cried in the shower that night. Not loudly, not like in movies, just quietly, leaning against the tile, letting water mix with tears. I didn't know who I was anymore. Asterisk, Jackson had always been good to me, patient, solid, but lately he'd stopped asking questions, stopped seeing, through me. I told myself that was part of why I said yes to Caleb, that I was lonely in a full room. But maybe that was just another excuse. Asterisk, one night. Caleb sent another text. Asterisk, you didn't cheat, Eli. You reached for something you were missing. Maybe that's okay. Asterisk, I didn't know if it was okay. I wasn't sure I even cared about being forgiven. What haunted me wasn't the act hit, was the ease with which I'd done it. The way my heart had responded to Caleb like it had just been. Waiting for permission, Asterisk Jackson planned a surprise date the next week. A little cafe downtown, where we'd had our first kiss. I was supposed to meet him at 7. At 6:48, I texted asterisk, sorry, work emergency. Asterisk instead, I went to Caleb's place. We didn't touch, we didn't kiss. We just talked. About nothing. About everything. About the fact that we both knew this wasn't just about one night anymore. Asterisk, and as I left his apartment, I saw my reflection in the hallway mirror. Eyes tired, mouth half open. It's like someone caught mid-confession. Asterisk, I whispered to myself. I think I already made the choice. The moment I said yes. It happened on a Tuesday. Asterisk, I came home and found Jackson at the dining table, fingers folded around a receipt. His face was unreadable, But I knew before he spoke. I knew what it was. Asterisk. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He just held it out to me and asked, "Did you go to Caleb's the night we fought?" I froze. He continued, voice eerily calm. "He paid for pizza at 2 a.m. That's his name on the digital receipt." "I thought you went to a hotel." My mouth opened. "Closed, Eli," he said. "Are you cheating on me?" Asterisk. The truth sat like a stone behind my teeth. I could have lied. I could have made something up. But the weight of Ida Vev, everything was too heavy now. Asterisk. I slept with him, I said, that night. After the fight, silence fell, like glass shattering across the floor. His lips parted, but no sound came out. He looked at Mareely, looked. Then, finally, you. Let him touch you. Asterisk. It wasn't about that, I whispered. It was more complicated. I asterisk. Did you love him? Asterisk. The question ripped through me. My chest tightened. Asterisk. I don't know, I said. Maybe. Not then. But now? I don't know. Asterisk. He stood. Up slowly, like gravity had betrayed him. You didn't just cheat on me. You chose him. Asterisk. No, Jackson. I was confused. I was angry. And Caleb, he's been there for everything. Asterisk. Don't, he said. Don't make this about me. You made a decision. You broke us. Asterisk. He didn't yell. That made it worse. His disappointment carved through me deeper than rage ever could. Asterisk. He grabbed his jacket, his keys, and paused in the doorway. I would have forgiven a mistake, he said. Oh. But you called it complicated. You called it love. Asterisk. And then he left. Asterisk. I stood in the middle of the apartment, hands shaking, unsure whether I should chase him or disappear myself. Instead, I slid down the wall and cried into my knees. Caleb texted later that night, "Are you okay?" Asterisk. I stared at the screen. I didn't answer. Asterisk. Days passed. I didn't go to work. Out. Didn't eat much. The world felt muted. I kept expecting Jackson to come back, to knock on the door, to say something like, "I miss you, even if I hate you." But he didn't. And Caleb. He waited a few days, then showed up outside my apartment. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said quietly. I let him in. We sat on the floor, like we were teenagers again, talking about music. About the stupid things we'd done in high school. About anything but the thing that tore everything apart. He reached for my hand. "I want to try," he said. "For real? No money? No secrets? Just us?" And for a second, I thought about saying yes. But something inside me hesitated. Because the truth was, I didn't know if we started from love or from loneliness. From a real connection or from an emotional wound I never treated. "I don't know who I am right now," I told him. He nodded. "I'll wait." But I didn't ask him to. Weeks passed. Asterisk. I walked alone more. Sat in coffee shops with a notebook I never used. I watched people, holding hands on sidewalks, and wondered how many of them were faking it. How many had secrets they'd buried so deep, even their lovers couldn't feel them anymore. Asterisk. One evening, I found myself outside that old Cafe Jackson and I used to go to. The one with the red chairs and the chalkboard sign that never spelled cappuccino, right? I sat at our table. No one joined me, and that felt right. I wrote a letter that night. To Jackson. I didn't send it, but I needed to write it. In it, I said, "I'm sorry I broke us. Not because I regret being with Caleb, but because I lied to you about who I was. I thought I was someone loyal, someone steady. But maybe I was. Just someone scared of stillness." I folded it, tucked it away, and let it be. A week later, I saw Caleb on the street. He was laughing with someone else. He saw me. I saw him. We nodded. That was it. And maybe that's all it ever needed to be. Final line optional for voiceover outro. Asterisk. He paid me once, but the real cost came after, not in dollars. In silence, in guilt, and in a love I may never get back. Asterisk.